This evening, we will begin with our budget workshop. We have a number of students who are joining us. This group continues to grow. It's very nice to see all of you. You know, when I was a student and that we went to a board meeting in Comac, the superintendent gave us a chit that was for free homework pass. I don't know if the superintendent does that here, but certainly your time would be. I don't want to set you up in any fashion one way or the other. Yes, yes. So, welcome to our students. You are encouraged to ask your questions. You're the reason we're here. The first part of this meeting is our budget workshop. There are three. Some of our regulars have been to this: January, February, March. I found last year that questions came up as we went along because the presentations may have been misunderstood. This is an opportunity for us, meaning the community, and the members of the board are members of the community, to listen to the discussions being had by the district office with regards to the budget components. The budget is not decided upon until April. So workshops are budget components. Some of them are given. For example, tonight, the transportation portion of the budget is a contract that exists. It's a multi-year contract. It's still here. That's part of the budget. It's a given figure. BOCES is decided by the number of students divided by their budget, and that's our share. Those are defined amounts. They're not something that we change. Other areas are more illustrative and more informal, and that we can discuss and open up and have conversation. In the end, the way the process starts is the superintendent is advised by the board a simple concept. You are to remain within the cap. From that, they begin to build the budget. Years ago, when I first started on the board, before there was a cap, there were wish lists, and they were coming up with all kinds of things, and departments would just submit as much as they could because they knew people would cut, and then they would find areas what I could get. The cap process has brought some degree of business reality to the process of funding education. It allows the community to control it and control your taxes. In the end, New York State is the only state that funds its education process out of property tax directly. In other states, it's part of the state budget. We are the ones who have to fund it directly. As a district that has very little commercial property, it lands on this side of, I believe this side, these appear to be homeowners on this side. So these are the non-homeowners at this time. It falls on our shoulders, and frankly, every year you look at it and it goes up, and there's expenses, and we're the direct conduit for your ire with regards to taxes. We start the process, like I said, with, it's a legal term. In the courtroom, I use the term an order show cause. You must show cause why. So we start the process not as a wish list, but why do we need this? And in that why, we then come to a point where can we accommodate that? And sometimes there are points where we do have to work in April very quickly to try to develop a means to meet that need. Each year there is always something that is a need that we have to try to figure out. And that is a challenge for Linda, our business official, in putting this together and how we do things. The past 2 years, one of our biggest needs was maintaining our property, maintaining our buildings, maintaining the safety of our students in a method that was within our means, and we paid for from our reserves. 2 years ago, this will be 3 years, we created capital reserves that allow us to do that and do it without much upheaval. And that's important, just like in your own household. Your budget, you can't just tomorrow buy, put a whole new roof on without thinking about it. Do all different things like that. And that's part of what this process is. We've tried to bring to the table, lack of a better term, business sense to how we run a budget. I'm a businessman. I run a law firm. I have multiple people who work for me. I have 2 locations, and every week, that Monday morning, 9 o'clock, I have to pay all that stuff every week. There's no one above me that's paying for it. I'm paying for it. And that's what we bring to the table, and that's what I think you guys expect. Tonight, for our students, that's what you're going to begin to hear. This is a tiny portion of the budget, but it's the introduction of it. Feel free to ask questions. This is the opportunity to learn. Some of you have been to this process before. You're experts now. The most important thing to learn is this is called an expenditure budget. In my office, I have a budget. I can move money around. In an expenditure budget, if we don't budget for it, even though another area may have a savings, we have to put it in the budget to spend it. The best example of that, is it on tonight, adult ed? No, that's next one. Adult ed is a great example. Adult ed is a revenue neutral program in the district. It does not cost us anything, and we offer it. However, in an expenditure budget, we have to budget for it. So a line is taken up. So there's money that is taken up from, because we have a cap. We have to use up some money, even though we get the revenue back. So it's zero, but we use up a line. So an expenditure budget is a little primitive. It's also a year. No one's going to listen to me in Albany, but I think school districts should do 3-year budgets because it allows for the fluctuation in budgetary process. No business would work year to year. And then finally, our budget process is, at this point, we don't know what our revenues are. Can you imagine running a business that way? We will learn our cap after we put in our calculations. You may have read in the newspaper that there is a, what was it, 1.8?
The base plan.
The base that it's based on. The 1.8 is what they base it on, and then each school district puts it into a formula based on what the controller gives us that defines our cap for our district, which will be different than Miller Place or Jefferson. We won't know that, despite the fact that we're working on the budget for the next 3 months, until March and April. And then we don't know what our revenue stream is until the end. It's a little out there. Imagine running a business that way. That's how the educational bureaucracy runs it. That's how the state runs it. It's not an excuse. In the end, these are the cards we're dealt, so we have to deal with them. We have to make the budget work. We have to do what we're supposed to do. What's the rule? The Sweeneyism is, 1, what do the students need? 2, let's be financially responsible. If you're not sure what to do with number 2, see number 1. Gordon, you're on.
Everyone join me, please. Welcome, Happy New Year, everybody. It's Happy Holidays just a month ago. As Bob just put very well, this is the first workshop. If some of you are tough enough to stick it out, like these folks do every year, and go through January, February, March, you're going to see that it changes every month. This is our first shot at it, and it'll change because we don't know our tax rate, and we don't know state aid. Those numbers we should have in March. So next month, when we talk about what Bob mentioned, driver's ed, adult ed, that part might be interesting. That's the principals and directors' budgets next time, and things they're asking for. As a matter of fact, Lynn and I start meeting with them tomorrow to pare down some of their budgets. As Bob mentioned too, we have a 2% tax cap. Thanks to the governor, we have to stay within that 2%. We can't go over. That's driven by the state. So again, this will morph. The board accepts it in April, and the community votes on it in May. So it's really a 5-month process starting today. And it's a lot of information as well. So let's get started. This is what we're talking about tonight. You see all the categories. Now, BOE, Central Administration, that's me, District Office, and the Board of Education. Insurance for the district, printing, BOCES charges, transportation, technology, debt service. That sounds like a lot, right? That's only 12% of the budget. Tonight we're talking about 12%. As this pie graph, you see the whole budget? The little piece there is what we're talking about tonight. Some terms you probably know what the budget is. You know revenue, money coming in. Appropriated fund balance. When Linda pays all the bills at the end of the year, we determine what our fund balance is. It's like your bank account after you pay your bills. To balance our budget, we have to appropriate some of that money to balance the budget. So that's the appropriated piece. Tax cap, state mandates. Let me give you an example. One state mandate that hit us and other districts this year, any election, any notices assigned by the road, everything has to be translated into Spanish. Now, when the state says you have to do that, they're not giving you any money to do that. They just came out with another one. Data protection officer. Obviously, all the hacks, we experienced that. Things going on. They want someone supervising all of this. State mandates, unfunded. They constantly come out, we get them every year. Tax levy, the amount that we can, the taxpayers pay, and the tax rate. Basically, what I'm going to show you on this next chart is the Board of Education and District Office, what makes all of us wrong. See the Board of Education? Now I look at often what was budgeted last year, what's budgeted this year. You'll see the Board of Education is the same, there's no hike in it. Most of that is dues to organizations that our board members belong to stay informed. District clerk, that's within our office, that's the clerk to the board. What she needs to have is equipment money. Let me tell you why we add a little equipment money. In the budget, you cannot, if you're short and you need equipment, you can't put money into that budget for equipment. That's the law. Can't do it. So if we need some more money for equipment in district office, we added a few $100s in case. There's something always comes up that we have to replace. District meetings, that's something I just told you about. If we have to have an additional vote, if the budget goes down, we have to put it up again. So you have to put money aside to have that additional vote. That category also covers the translation of all of our documents into Spanish relating to that vote. And you can see last year, this year, that's a $14,000 hike. That's a state mandate. I have needs for equipment in my office, antiquated equipment there. That's a small hike. Business administrator, that's limited, stays the same. Auditing is the same. Treasurer. Purchasing is up a little bit because we use this agency called Ed Data, and we get much of our materials and supplies there. But Ed Data is a co-op organization who can do a lot of they have vendors, they get vendors for us. We don't have to do the bidding, they do it. In the long run, what that means is it saves us money. So we're expanding ed data. Moving on, agent fee the same, legal fees the same, personnel needs a printer and public information service. So all of this lining up is an increase of $19,000 over last year. What is the most of that due to? Translating everything into Spanish and the need for an extra vote. If we don't need an extra vote, that money is saved. Goes into the fund balance. Better safe than sorry. You may not have known this, but we rent all of our copiers in the district. That saves us money. And I'm going to go over the insurance. What we do is we don't know what the insurance hike is, but a lot of you probably know if you pay car insurance, house insurance, health insurance, it goes up every year. We plan a 5% hike in that insurance. That's a liability for the district. And what added to that is adding more to our cyber protection, our cyber insurance. And BOCES, I'm going to show that in a minute, I'll tell you what that is. BOCES is a cooperative unit where, if you've heard of co-ops in the city, where there are needs to repairs, everything else, everybody pays a share of that on a co-op. BOCES is the same way. All the districts in the county pay a fee basically to belong to that co-op to use their services. Every year, that fee goes up a little bit. It's up $5,000 over last year. The insurance piece, additional cyber insurance. Now, fortunately, Ken caught it right away. We paid no ransom, but we did use our cyber insurance. Because when we called the company, they said, we want you to use this company to check. We believe that you're clean, but we want this company to double check and search it again. They went over our insurance amount. Totally went over it. So we had to pay additional money. It was about $18,000 more or something of that nature. And I spoke to a group of superintendents of Riverhead about it and said, how many of you have cyber insurance? How much do you have? You're all about to get hit. As a matter of fact, they sent a second letter out last week with my name on it again, with the district seal, all of my information to the staff, like they did last time.
An email.
In the email. 44 teachers hit on it last time, in the fall. Fortunately, no one hit it this time. That's probably the training we had about this hacking and ransomware. Fortunately, no one hit it. But if it takes one teacher to click on that email, and we're going to experience the fall all over again. That's how bad this is. One teacher. So what we're going to be doing is sending out periodically false, erroneous emails to check our staff, to see if anyone clicks on it. But anyway, we used our cyber insurance, all of it paid a little more, so we increased our cyber insurance next year, which I think is a wise thing to do. So basically, this whole thing, the increase, is from, you can see the jump in insurance, and a slight jump in BOCES, and the printing stayed the same for lease on machines. So the result is, primarily due to insurance, is $22,000 in that bracket. Now this is Mr. Jocker's budget. I just spoke to you about cyber insurance. The raise here, the hike here is clearly cyber protection. Layers of protection that Ken has put in place, used other companies. I'll tell you without going to each one. Equipment went up a little bit, and you'll see it down below. We are starting the initiative of one-on-one computers in the district. A little bit behind in that, but again, we have to pay for a lot of things. So we're going to start, is that grade 9? Are you going to start it?
Grade 7.
7. Okay, 180 computers are coming in. Each grade, each year will get their own computers. Okay, in the long run, what that's going to eliminate is, it's going to eliminate the labs, computer labs, and laptop parts. Yes?
Is any talk about elementary with this? Because we have one lab for the whole entire elementary school, and they don't really visit it, so...
I see them in there. I see them in there, unless Ken.
The elementary has 2 labs currently.
Okay.
And they have a laptop lab. You're
Right.
probably talking about the computer lab. That's
Yeah.
one. Then they have the laptop lab, and they have new this year, 8 iPads per classroom.
Because I hear that it gets better as they go on, like third or fourth grade, but K to 2, is there anything to get their hands on, just like basic computer skills and using the mouse, the keyboard? I'm not a proponent for one-to-one technology in lower grades. I think it's a little much sometimes, but if they could get in there a little more often.
Right. And they have an iPad cart as well. So that's another
For
lab.
upper grades. Maybe I'm getting
That
this
might be the
information.
individual teachers.
Yeah, I don't
As
know.
well.
It's hard to get information, everyone kind of has like a different story, but I didn't know if you would know if they're just going to get their hands on technology a little more in K to 2.
Yeah, I'll speak to Mrs. Kaplan about it. They should be exposed.
Yeah, I think what happened is what was going through in September kind of threw everybody off with getting to the lab.
Oh, right.
So
Right,
that's why I didn't
discouraged
really
them.
want to ask this year, but I feel like we're kind of moving past it, and I just haven't seen much, or maybe I just don't know, being new to the district, and I only have a first grader, so honestly, I only know what I know, which is not that much. And I don't know what she knows. So
Okay,
if there's
I
any
will
information-
speak to him about it.
Okay.
Moving on, can contractual with the vendors we deal with and what you put in place, especially that new dark tray security appliance, right? Put in by prominent?
Put in by
Prominence
prominence. Yep.
device. What does that device do, would you tell the people?
It basically sits on the network, and it learns what's normal in your network, and it looks for anything out of the norm. And then it also has a component where if something is abnormal, it'll stop it and alert me right away. So we may get false positives or positive negatives, but I'll have to free that up. So
Right. So contractual and the software, again, for cybersecurity, and the BOCES, we put our email on the cloud. So when you add all that up in technology, that's responsible for the hiking costs. Software, going to the cloud, and contractual, correct?
correct. We've put in we want to add multi-factor login for privileged accounts.
You want to explain that, what multi-factor login is?
So not only would you have to put in your password, but you'd also have to have a device where you would get a code to it, and then you put that code in, just to log in. These are for privileged accounts that can make alterations to the network. In the past, the virus could just come in with a password that it's found, and it can just wreak havoc, which it was able to. So this will prevent that factor at least.
Thanks. Transportation, let me go back to that. The CPI, the cost index, last year was 1.5. We usually plan 2% to be prepared, because that 1.5 can actually go over 2, which is done in the past. So if we plan around 2% every year, and the rise in transportation costs, we play it safe. As Bob told you before, with transportation, Linda and I spent a lot of time working with that bus company and talking to them to get an excellent and respectful contract, which we had, which is multi-year. And we're enjoying that negotiation. And Linda does a great job of planning this. That being said, you'll see almost everything went up 2%. Now I'm going to touch on some of these things for the benefit of the students who might not know this in transportation. That's material supplies, the first line. Regular transportation in the district, the cost is on the right. Athletics is below that. OCED, sending our kids to BOCES locations, is following that. Now here's the difference. Out-of-district special education, where our students are placed, and where those locations are. And here's another thing about a special ed budget. Every year there's a rumor we're cutting special ed budgets. We don't do that. The budget for special education is determined by the needs of the kids in the program. Whatever's in our IEP, they get. You buy. You have to. We don't cut it. Now this thing, the transportation for out of district, when we don't have a program, they might go to Port Jeff, some other location. The distances and the needs of that transportation, they're less than last year. If you look at 1920s, 1,354,000 compared, you'll see this year it's 1,200,000. But here is what I warn our folks about every year. One student coming in with great needs can add 100,000 plus on that budget. But based on the population now, that's the figure. And what it does, it brings it down. We're not spending as much. Non-public transportation. You might have friends who go to private schools, they don't attend the high school. We have to pay for the transportation, and you also will see non-public late. We have late buses. Those students who go to private schools, we have to provide late buses for them as well. That's often a learning for folks. They don't know that. In district needs, you see that. In Illinois plans $100,000 extra a year in case you have to add a bus here or there for some reason. But again, the only one that's not 2% is the out-of-district special ed, and there's a savings there right now. That's why there's a savings, a decrease for the first time appearing of $88,000. Again, you have the learning coming up here. All district bond payments, we have bonds still, and I'll explain those in a minute. Tax anticipation notes. Even though you're taxed, we don't get that money until January. We borrow money to pay the bills because the county, the state does not give us that money until well down the line. So you have to borrow that money. The first line, we have 3 bonds out still. From 2005 to 2007, we have 3 bonds. What are they for? The middle school gym, the second one, the middle school roof. And believe it or not, you know we just got a new track, right? That bond is for the old track. So those bonds are still there and we're still paying on them. So the first 2 categories refer to those 3 bonds that date back. Now, when you pay off a loan, you'll see sometimes the principal goes up and the interest goes down. Sometimes the principal goes down and interest goes up. It's according to the payment plan. So you'll see they almost balance each other out. Now, Linda is planning on the interest again being the same as last year on our tax anticipation notes to be the same. We paid off a tractor. We're still paying off 2 district trucks right now. So you see the installment debt went down almost in half by paying off that tractor. And then we've had this energy performance contract for years in the district, well before I got here, that got us in good shape at that time when we took it. New boilers, new heat, new air conditioning, all of that. Now that's getting old. So we're still paying off that service contract. But again, a slight decrease in the budget of $6,200. So, what did we just show you? From the 12% of the budget. Administrative charges, the translation, some equipment, translation, and if we need a vote, that is what's responsible for the hike in administrative. Special items, mainly insurance, district liability, and cyber insurance is driving that special items category up. Technology is what I just told you, cyber protection, layers of protection, software, contractual, and BOSIS for the cloud. Transportation is down, again, because of the special needs kids. And the debt service was down slightly because we paid off one of our loans. But again, we're still paying off 3 bonds that will be off the record in what, 3 years, 4 years?
Well, one of them was done in 2 years, and then the other one's 3 years, the other one's like 7 years.
Okay, 2, 3, and 7 years on those last 3 bonds. Okay. So overall, we're up $12,000 at this point. Here are the categories. You'll see transportation, obviously, is the biggest one. That went up 2%. And where we are. This is the meeting, if you can make it, or if you're not required to go to more than one meeting, that's fine, but principals and directors, their budgets are next week. We're meeting with every one of them to look at their budget, starting tomorrow, to see if what they want, should we get it, do we need it, do we have to cut it? Now again, everything you see is not in stone. We're presenting this next week in March. The firm budget will be April, and it's voted on in May, along with the board election, as well as the budget. So here we are in the initial phase of phase one in those categories. Questions?
Just a comment.
Bob, comment?
Just to indicate, last year we introduced to the district as a board strategic planning initiatives. That was the first year we did it. What that does is, and you'll see it in the February meeting, the building principals are now the drivers of their building's budget. They get together with the directors to work together. They're not separate. This isn't a district office down. They tell us what they need. And they justify it. They bring it up to the business official, and then it's brought up through to April for us to work with. That is most important when you want to look at, as much as we don't have a 3-year budget, that you want to look at a 3-year strategic plan to see where you're ending up 3 years from now, 4 years from now. How does that work? We would like to hire such and such a teacher. We would like to buy such and such books. It's a process. It's not going to happen all at once, but it can't be a reactionary process. It has to be over time. And they're actually charged with, as part of their goals for the superintendent to get them from us, what is your strategic plan? It's not just a spreadsheet. It's about staff. It's about staff training. It's about what their background is, how a teacher or a staff person can be flexible between buildings. For a small district, you have to do what you can in both 3 buildings. How do we address all the different pieces, maintenance-wise, and do it, even though it's a 1-year budget, to look at what's going to happen in 3. As you get towards 4, you start to get into a little bit of the estimate area. As you get into 5, it becomes a little bit different. This way, we can also align it to our contracts, to retirements, who's being replaced, what's being replaced. Next month is the fruit of their labor, to create it as opposed to a wish list, a reactionary plan. It has a plan that connects last year to this year to 2 years forward. The other piece, I just want to go back to the insurance. We are not increasing our premium because of any risk that was presented to our systems. This is the decision made to increase our coverage so that for future issues, we have greater coverage that would accommodate the size of our data and that would allow for examination of the data. We're a repository of information. We're a repository of student data. There are federal and state requirements. Through this cybersecurity insurance policy that we have, they provided the outside source to examine it as an independent contractor and a legal examination so that we remained in compliance. And when they concluded, besides saying that we had clean data, besides saying that we did the processes correctly, was also that we were in compliance legally for our data. And so that's not an increase because we're getting charged more. We decided to get better coverage.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Board member, return to the stage.
Any other questions on the workshop material? Go ahead. You have to stand up for us to hear you. Did someone, oh, you were just stretching? Okay. Any other stretching? The teacher did ask me to call on certain people, so I'm choosing not to. I forgot to turn up the lights. Just to go over the agenda as you have it, if you have any questions with regards to the material in the agenda, Roman numeral 4 is that point in time, and then at the end, there are general questions and comments. We ask that you refrain from using student names or teachers' names, because we do publish this. It goes out into the airways. If you have items that you think would be appropriate, you can bring them to the superintendent, where they deal with personnel of student names. We ask that you keep your comments to 2 minutes. Address your comments to the board. This is not a time to read statements or give commentary, and we hope we can answer your question or direct the superintendent to assist you in that question. We'll move on to number 3 of the agenda, approval of the minutes. Pete?
Number 3, approval of minutes. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the minutes of the December 18, 2019 meeting as submitted.
May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor? Are questions with regards to the agenda? Any questions with regards to the printed agenda that has been distributed? Good. Number 5, personnel appointments. I always go to the right, so that's why I'm looking to the left, because I have it, otherwise I go this way. Anne Marie?
Office Assistant Part-Time, Lisa Lopez. Resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointment. Lisa Lopez, current School District aide, start date January 6, 2020, Office Assistant, .5 position, step 1, 10.5 months.
Thank you, Steve, for that second. Any comments? All in favor?
Office Assistant Part-Time, Sharon Oliveri. Resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointment. Sharon Oliveri, December 2nd, 2019, Office Assistant, .6 position, step 1, 12 months.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments? All in favor? And 1 abstention. Number 3. Lisa, you want to continue on?
Substitute custodian Brendan T. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointment. Brendan T. January 16, 2020, substitute custodian at $14.75 per hour.
Thank you, Lisa. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor? Would you mind, Lisa, continuing with 4?
School District aide, Lisa Palermo Zanfardino. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointment. Lisa Palermo Zanfardino, January 16, 2020, School District aide, presently a sub-aide with a compensation of step 2.
I second that.
Thank you, Pete. Any comments? All in favor? If the board will allow me to intercede and do number 5, volunteer coach Ryan Wilson, a young man who is our graduate and student here tonight. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointment. Ryan Wilson, January 16th, 2020, volunteer track coach. May I have a second?
I second that.
Any comments? All in favor? Welcome.
Thank you.
Or you know Ed's abstention. Thank you, Ed. Ed, would you proceed ahead with the action items?
Action items, educational, Committee on Special Education. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education has no objections to the following special education recommendations and approves the authorizations for the funds to implement the special education programs and services consistent with such as listed.
May I have a second?
Second.
Just to offer a comment, that section every month of the budget is, of the agenda, is what defines special education budget. There are no names, there's no information. That's what Gordon's speaking about. This is what defines the need. And every month there are meetings, there are discussions from the committee, and they make recommendations. The superintendent passes it on to us for approval. Did we vote? No. All in favor? And action items, business. Ed, did you do? Oh, I'm sorry.
Nope. I'm happy to do that, that's
Steve?
fine.
I'll give it to Steve.
Alrighty.
Thank you, Ed.
Section A, policy, uniform grant guidance for federal awards. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the second reading of the uniform grant guidance for federal awards policy that was proposed at December 18, 2019 meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments? This would be the second reading of the policy as required. All in favor? The next items, some of them are written by lawyers. To B, C, and D, E, F, I'm going to take the liberty to just comment. Some of these deal with our tax exemptions that we, as a board, decide. We decide it, we vote on it on behalf of the community, in particular where the veterans, those with disabilities, our senior citizens who are in the community, our fire and ambulance workers, they serve us. Our intent behind this, as we will vote on each one, is simply to say thank you and thank you for your service. Number, or B, please.
Partial senior citizen exemption. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby reaffirms the maximum income for the partial senior citizen tax exemption, RP 467, at $37,389.
May I have a second? Thank you, Ron. Any comment? All in favor? C. Want to finish that up? Sure. Move on.
Limited income disability exemption. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby reaffirms the income limits for the limited income disability tax exemption, RP 459C, at $37,399.
May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor? Rob, would you continue on to D?
Alternative Veterans Exemption. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby reaffirms the following alternative veterans exemption. RP
As listed.
RP 458A, resolution as listed.
And the Gold Star Parents exemptions as well, as listed.
I second that.
Thank you, Pete. My comments again, thank you to our veterans for allowing us the opportunity to be here and to do this. It is a small gesture. All in favor? On to the back of the page, E, Cold War exemption for the veterans. Rob, would you continue?
Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby reaffirms the following Cold War veterans exemption. RP 458B, resolution as listed.
May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor? Anne Marie, would you take F?
Fire and ambulance workers' exemption. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby reaffirms the following fire and ambulance workers exemption, RP 466C, resolution as listed.
Second.
Thank you, Rob. Any comments? All in favor?
That's very good. That's
Thank you. Questions, comments? How are you?
Good, how are you?
Very well, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. How do you guys feel about show and tell tonight?
Sure. What do you got?
So, what I have here, and you guys have heard this before, is a middle schooler backpack, which I weighed tonight because I was shocked at its weight of 23 pounds. If you want to look in here, that full of binders for Regents classes. I noticed that my son was kind of walking with kind of like this a little bit, shoulders hurting, and I don't know exactly how to fix this problem of super heavy backpacks, because we've gone through this pile of stuff, and he needs all of it for review, and because he's in classes now in 8th grade, he can't cull this stuff out. So I know you guys have been doing work on digital textbooks and things like that, but doesn't seem to be taking care of this problem. When I looked up some of the recommended weights for backpacks, which is not more than 10%, at 23 pounds, this is 15–16% of his body weight. And he's a pretty big kid. So I'm sure that there's kids that are 100 pounds, 110 pounds, and their books aren't guided by the weights, it's by what classes they're taking. So my ask to you guys is, if you can maybe work with the staff in the schools to try to figure out some way to kind of shrink this or come up with some alternate that eliminates some of the excess weight on these kids' bodies. They're growing and changing, it's a lot of stress on them. And I'm just worried about not only my son, but the entire student body and kind of what the impact of this is doing on a daily basis.
And just to add to that, because we've had this before, there's also, particularly in middle school, a very tight time to switch classes.
Yes.
So the other alternative answer would be, well, they can put some in their locker, but that's really not realistic. They have to take the whole day, all day long, every day. I applaud you for the show and tell. We had that issue with textbooks. We've gotten further and further along with that. Sometimes this is driven by each class has a particular loose leaf organizer requirement that maybe we should all think together in terms of how that works, because each one adds up. I'll just summarize what I've been through, so thank you.
I'm fully sympathetic. My daughter is going on has her 5th backpack for this year alone, and we have to change this one out because it's starting to tear from the weight and the stress.
Yeah, right there. I mean, he's had this backpack since, I think, 1st or 2nd grade, so it's held up really well, but it is starting to tear. I've had to sew it a couple times.
Well,
they're all parents.
Frankly, it's driven by what are all the needs for each individual class. That's, and that's something you could.
When you went through, Brad, did you find any particular class had the most material?
I mean, the biggest one is
Yeah.
See?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And we went to soft-sided binders because that reduced the weight, but, some of the things, I think in bringing it to the principal's attention, to the teacher's attention, this was an issue also with homework. Everybody can't be individual. You have to sort of work together because your student has 5 or 6 teachers who are making requirements, and that adds up.
yeah, and that would be a great approach, kind of a collaborative look at the building level, at the grade level, come up with some sort of collaborative solution that can be implemented across.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Anybody wants to feel this?
Oh, no, don't worry.
Any other
Better
questions?
value than Ed for your
I hope you didn't ride your bike with it. Any other questions? Yes.
I think mine's going to be answered next time after meeting with principals, but is there any possibility, are you looking at any type of, I hate to say STEM, because STEM is very specific, but STEM or computer science, engineering, enrichment classes, or anything for elementary to boost them a little bit. I feel like our programs they're not there elementary-wise, or even K to 2, or I don't know them because I'm new to the district. There's like a flyer that we could find out what goes on in elementary in terms of other things. Like, I didn't know there were 2 labs, had no idea. How would I know that? So if there's any way that we could be informed in the elementary level, even, if we're coming in as kindergarten parents, just letting us know your kids get their hands on iPads twice a week, or they're going to do Ozabots once in 3rd grade. If I could know more, I probably would ask less questions, but I feel bad asking so many questions about things that I don't know, as I did not go to the school, and a lot of us parents don't know, so we ask each other, and then we still don't know. So I don't know if there's a path for STEM or any engineering of any type.
Well, at least I'll compliment you for coming and you are asking the question, because that's how you get informed. Right. There are initiatives. Rob Kaplan has introduced an hour of code. It's something that's done in the elementary school where the kids sit and do work with keyboards and doing code writing. There is STEM work in the elementary school and the middle school, and we just finished a discussion with regards to what initiatives the principals are looking at. Certainly it would be a great topic to introduce if that's part of their principal's budget. Even if it's something that's already there, maybe we could review it again.
Right.
Because we've gone through it, but there are, for each building, there is a STEM STEAM initiative for each building. What you're also talking about, if I may, is the communication of it. And I have been looking for some better communication out. We may have it, and then you don't know about it.
Exactly.
Your student, your son or daughter may. It may be a flyer that's at the bottom of the backpack,
Right.
or it doesn't get brought back home.
Right.
I'd love to see newsletters come out, whether at grade level or building level, so mom and dad can see what's coming up with a little lead time,
Right.
so that you can actually get the child there. There are clubs.
Yeah, like that. I was going to ask that. I don't even know if there's a club for K to 2. Sometimes it starts in 3rd grade, but I don't even know that.
Right. And
So
we'll ask for that to be covered next month, if you would mind joining us next month.
Absolutely.
But I like the question, I like to get it back out there.
Yeah.
Our parents need to know what's going on, so that they can prepare and see what options there are and what their students like.
Because there are standards coming down in 2022.
There may be some
for
stuff
engineering
that's
and
online.
engineering. Yeah.
But if you go online, it's not as, I look for, this is what's coming up in the month,
Right.
and it would be informative.
Yes, thank you so much.
Sure, any other questions? Yes?
I don't know if this is a question that is like worth asking or not, but I think that something that came to mind in this discussion is how there's certain things that there are like a lot of expectations of things that parents and families have to pay for that seem kind of like necessary steps that their children have to take in certain things, like driver's ed, for example. Because driver's ed is about $400, and there are some families who can't afford to pay for their children to take driver's ed, which is a really important thing. And I was wondering if there's a way to alleviate the amount of money that parents have to pay for certain things like that.
I believe there is. You specifically talking about driver's education?
Yeah.
I believe there is something, and what you could do is, if you want to email me, I'll get you the name of the person you could talk to. But I believe there is a reduction
Okay.
for that reason. We can't control a lot of what is involved with driver's ed. It's state, they dictate all the rules. So we follow them, but I believe we did have a reduction for a student last year. So, you want to email me and I'll get you that person?
Or you can, if you feel more comfortable, you can indicate to your teacher that you asked the question, and your teacher will send it on to the superintendent. Whichever you feel more comfortable with. Any other questions? How did we do tonight, students? They're still awake. Yeah, we're going to flick the lights here and there. Any other questions? Thank you for coming. Motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you so much.